Hey guys, welcome back to another show of Take Control 360. I have a very special show for you today. I titled it Lessons from the Previous Generation. I want to give you a little sample here. Let's start with technology alone. My kids got smartphones when they were probably about 15 years old. Okay? The iPhone was invented in 2007. That's 10 years ago. All right? So I probably got one a year later. So I was like 42 when I got my cell phone, my first smartphone. Okay, now let's go back another generation. So cable TV was a big thing when I was in probably freshman in high school. Everyone was having cable TV. MTV was everywhere. So we got that probably about freshman in high school. All right, so again, I was 15 there, just getting cable TV. Now you go back another generation, and my dad probably got a black and white TV, just one TV in their household when he was probably about 15. So in 3 generations, you went from having one black and white TV in one home, in a home, going all the way through to now having color TV, mobile, in people's hands. Okay, that's how much technology has changed over 3 generations. Okay, and it's not just technology. There's a lot of other stuff, especially when it comes to transportation, or even when it comes to being an entrepreneur or running a small business. Things that you did even 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, they seem like a generation ago. So a lot of people don't want to look in the previous generations on anything, because why should they? Because everything that they need to do in business and need to do in life is right here and now. I have a little issue with that, right? It really is about your character, about your values, about your leadership, about your ideas you've learned. Okay, all of that had to come from somewhere, and it probably, in fact, in my case, most definitely came from the previous generation. And I'm sure in that generation, it was also the previous generation before that. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned reviewing other generations. So on that note, what I decided to do is I decided to interview my dad. I figure, why not? The one person that I went to a lot, that shaped me a lot, I wanted to interview him. So what I did is I asked him some questions. I wrote down some questions. I sent it to him. He reviewed them. We came in and did the show. It was the most difficult show, and at the same time, the most easiest show that I've ever done. Okay, let me tell you why. When it first started, preparing and all that stuff, it was definitely nerve-wracking. It was almost like a little kid wanting to please your dad to make sure everything went fine. But as soon as the interview started, it was so easy to do. I mean, the back and forth was just like the two of us in a room. And so definitely, I had so much of that I decided, we're going to make 2 shows out of this, not just one. So then I'm able to fill in these fillers. So basically what I wanted to show is an interview with my dad that you can see. Hopefully you learned something. And if you don't, at least you'll see one thing. You'll definitely see, wow, even today, I still consider my dad a hero. Check it out. Welcome back to the show. This week we got a really special guest. Everyone should have a go-to person in their lives to bump things off of. I've had someone for 50-something years, and he's sitting right next to me. My dad, Paul Riley. Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Okay, got some questions for you. You ready?
Ready.
All right, here we go. All right, so looking back on your life, all right, who has influenced you the most over the years?
When I was a youngster growing up, I had an Uncle Bert, my father's brother. We had a couple of good long talks in which he sort of asked me, what my desires was, my goal was, and everything. So he helped me when I was youngster. When I was in high school, I had a principal that was very good for me. It was just after the time that my mother and father separated, so he sort of took me under his wing. And he was there a couple of years for me, right through high school. So those are the 2 most influential ones right there.
Now, your Uncle Bert, what age frame was that?
That was mostly grammar school.
Uh-huh.
especially the latter part of grammar school.
Okay. Now, what about, so basically, so who you think shaped your life up till now? Like, what started?
I think the most influential person that really has shaped my life was my wife, Carol.
Mm-hmm.
She has really helped me along through the years, through communication and stuff like that. So I've learned a lot from her.
Now, so over the years, is there like something that you did at the beginning of your life that you switched, for example, when it comes to situations? Like any situations you get into, problem solving, whatever. Was there a mechanism that you've used over the years that helped you out?
Not really a mechanism. It was sort of a gut instinct of, should I do this? Should I do that? And I've sort of relied on, I guess, my experience on things that I should or shouldn't do. Because I sort of had a very good life in the beginning in the hardware store business. And I was there for almost 10 years until an opportunity came along in which I was able to take a test to see if I was able to go into police work. And that was this hard decision for me because I really enjoyed the hardware business at that time. But at that time, I didn't think I had the opportunity to grow that much more. So this opportunity came along and I said, let's test it out. Let's see if I'm good enough for it.
Now, you've had different jobs in your life, but getting back, you had, one time you had 3 jobs, right? Going at once?
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
It's sort of a part-time, the 2 were part-time. I was in a hardware store, and I was able to take, because of my experience in the hardware store, take odd jobs like wallpapering and painting because of my experience and my know-how in the hardware business. And then other odd jobs, I can't remember my third one. I know I had the third job to help out also.
Cool. Advice to your younger self. If your younger self was right here, let's start with your 20-year-old younger self. What would you say to him?
Keep on trucking.
So there's nothing that you would...
No, really, my philosophy, not my philosophy, my view is I wouldn't want to go back and really change anything because what I've progressed through my lifetime was where I was meant to be. And no, I wouldn't want to go back there.
What was your biggest moment, do you think, let's try biggest moment in life so far, besides your wedding? Because your wife's right here, so you have to say wedding.
No, that was number one. The birth of children. Each one was different. Each one growing up was different. It was sort of the adaptation that I had to make in being a father, because there's no to-do book on how to do it. So it's again, you have to go on your guts on what is right. And like I say, partnership with Carol, we had to both look at the way things are done or the way things should be.
One of the topics I gave my dad in this interview was self-talk. I told him, what kind of self-talk did you have, and how did you change the self-talk? And he didn't understand the question. He didn't understand the topic. I explained to him how usually what happens is all this different types of self-talk, and it's usually based on experience. So if you had a bad experience in the past or something that didn't go right, every time that situation may come up, your self-talk is saying, oh, watch out for this, oh, watch out for that. And so, that's pretty what. And he said, no, I don't have any of that. And at first I was like, are you kidding me? You don't have any of that? Of course you have that. And then I realized he had it. He just wasn't listening to it. Okay? Which is amazing that he was able to tune out that stuff. So listen to what else he has to say on the topic of confidence and values. Check it out. All right, next topic I want to talk about is confidence. Now, how did you develop your confidence through the years?
In the beginning, I didn't have confidence. I was shy growing up. So, like I say, during my school years, I sort of had people to sort of get me out of that shyness. But deep down, I was still shy. I didn't have that much confidence in myself. I don't think I developed confidence until I was, mid-30s or something like that.
So what was the trigger point of you developing your confidence?
It's sort of getting the experience in the job I had at that time. And me telling myself, hey, I can do this. Let's work through, how I was shy. What brought it out was basically I'm what you call a people person. I like to interact with people. I like to solve problems or help people. So that's what sort of grew my confidence, especially in my latter job.
So does this coincide with you going from the hardware store to campus police?
Both of them. In the hardware store, of course, I had to develop confidence in order to know the products or what the person wanted in the hardware business. If I didn't know what they were looking for or help, I couldn't help them out. So I had to develop that in a way so that my knowledge of what was in the hardware store gave me the confidence to help people out when they came to for a product or what they wanted to do.
Now, did anyone along the way say, hey, you're doing a great job, and that boosted it? Or was it just you internally saying, look, I got to go from A to B?
Yeah, it was internally. I had to go from A to B. In other words, I couldn't survive in the hardware business if I didn't have the confidence of knowing the products. And the same with, especially later on in my leadership role, I couldn't have the leadership if I wasn't confident that I was able to do the job that I had to perform.
So is there anything that you read or if there's something on TV that you saw something or you saw a confidence in someone or something, someone say, look, I'm not like that, but I want to be like that?
I probably didn't gain that until later on in life when I saw other people, especially either the people higher up in authority that had the confidence that I was able to look at and say, yeah, someday I hope to achieve that. And then I worked my way through it.
So when you worked your way up in the campus police into different positions as you went and grew into leadership, how did you, is there something that was a stumbling block to say, look, or you finally got past that confidence, saying, okay, this is what I need to do, and I'm at that level?
No, it was more or less experience in the years, gaining the know-how and what I would do, plus the training. I had a lot of training in my early years as a police officer. So that boosted my confidence there, getting that experience and getting that training.
Cool. All right, the next segment I want to talk about is values. Okay, over the years, did you always have a base values of what you had, or were they learned? What is your value set?
I learned most of my values from my family. We had a large family, but it was a family dynamic in which I had to, go with the flow, or I was left out. So I had my values basically in my family. Also, inside of that family, my faith value also. That helped me throughout my years. So I would say it just grew over the years, being mostly confident with my faith and with my family especially, because I still maintain a high value with family, whether it's my own family or with my brothers and sisters.
Now, what other values do you have? These high on the list. If you were coaching your younger self right now and said, these 3 values I want.
Confidence, family, definitely, especially in my marriage, and faith.
Yeah.
Those are my 3 strongest values.
Okay. Now, what about obviously honesty, integrity, and stuff like that? Where'd you get your integrity?
Working with people, I saw the opposite end and I didn't like it. So I instilled confidence or the integrity, basically, in those who I worked for and worked with.
So, all right, so the people you worked with, okay, if you didn't see integrity, how'd you handle that?
It was sort of a long process in which I sort of had to tell persons, hey, this is what I believe in, this is my values, and you need to adapt. Because if I don't like something in you, I'll tell you. And it's sort of, there goes my base value system again, that I didn't want to compromise on my value system. So I had to let other people know what my values were and not to compromise it.
So if someone around you that you're working with on a project, or whether you were with someone that you had to get something forward, and the trustworthiness wasn't there and the integrity wasn't there, what happened?
There again, I'd have to let them know what my value system was, what my integrity was, and what I expected of them, especially I was in a supervisory role. And they would take either a long time to come to my way of thinking, or else I would really have to instill with them what I expected of them on the job.
Did some people that were above you give you tasks or give you direction that we talked about before, gut or the maybe lack of trustworthiness, maybe lack of integrity, that you didn't want to do that task or do that direction? Was there something in your history that you said, I'm not doing this because my integrity would be in store?
I don't think it was something out loud, for instance. It's not something that I would say, no, I'm not going to do that. I think it would just be a matter of letting them know where I was. And throughout the years, it helped so that they wouldn't ask me to do something that was against my value system.
So if there were, sometimes you go up a ladder and some people say, to get this level, you have to do X. And that X wasn't a gut feeling for you. Did you ever have situations like that you said, look, it's not worth going to this next level if I have to compromise on my values?
Not really. Not really. I think what I had to do most of all, instill in with my siblings or with my co-workers, what I wanted them to do and how I wanted them to act. Especially in the police department, there was a lot of rough language, and I didn't like that. And so I sort of eventually got them around to realizing that they couldn't use the rougher language around me. But it took a while, and it wasn't something that I said they had to do or had not to do. It was just a matter of them coming around to see what my values were.
Good answer. All right, so here you are. You're doing very well in your job, or jobs sometimes. And there's like a work-life balance. Do you agree with that?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so how did you handle that work-life balance?
It's sort of seeing what the task was or wasn't, and trying to prioritize what my values were or where my priorities were. And I had to do that balance. I couldn't not do something against raising, my family, or do something against the job that I had to do. It's kind of hard to put something on it, but it was just something that I experienced and I worked through my life with, and I wasn't going to compromise that.
Now, there were times I remember that you were, working double shifts sometimes. Usually you had double shifts and stuff like that. How did you handle stuff like that you worked around like a family life? Like, were you often, like, especially how you did 3 jobs. at one time. Yet you also raising a young family. How did you try with that one?
It sort of depended on where it was. In other words, if something came up that compromised something in the family, I wouldn't do it. But it was something that I could do without hurting my family and could help my family or my job at that moment, yeah, I would do it. There was some times in which I had to do certain things, like like work a double shift, or I had to do an extra something extra because of an emergency somewhere or something like that. That's something that I had to do as far as my job goes. But it really didn't, I would say, it didn't compromise my family because my wife, especially Carol, knew the kind of job I had and knew at times that I would have to do certain things that would not hurt, but wouldn't be that much time spent with the family.
Do you think that you regretted any decision or something that caused you to work more or less or something, that maybe you missed something, family time or?
Not really. Later on in life, of course, when all the kids are gone, I sort of agreed with Carol that what I would do is work holidays in place of another person who had a family, where I didn't have that that pressure on me as far as working, with a family on holiday.
But you didn't think that, but do you regret any like event that you might have missed or?
Not that I can think of offhand.
How do you describe the concept of money in the way your life was with working? How did you rate money? Was it like you did something because it was this, or like when we're talking about priorities, where was the value of money in that?
I don't think money was a priority for me. I grew up without, much money. Family of 10, of course, we didn't have much to go around with anyway. So I never thought of a goal as money making. So that wasn't part of my decision making at all. Later on in life, especially before I was retiring, I said, yeah, let's get some money into the till for retirement. But before that, no.
So you never did any job opportunities or anything based on the value of pay, money, or whatever?
No.
And what about, also, so based on that, that's how you lived, finances, expenses and stuff like that.
Well, in the beginning, like I say, because I had 3 jobs, that was basically to get the income so I could, support my family.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, no.
So when you went from the 3 jobs to 1, it was purely income.
Yeah.
And then once you had the 1, you say, okay, and once the 1 equaled the 3, you didn't have to worry about having those other 2.
No, because I had the opportunity when I became a police officer to work the extra time. So I didn't have to really scramble for extra jobs.
Now, did you do a lot of OT or anything like that to get up to that level, or did you just do it to help out, or what?
Just when the opportunity came up. If an opportunity to overtime came up and I didn't have any other priorities, then I would take the overtime.
Cool.
But I wouldn't go seeking it.
Just going to go a little off topic here about entrepreneurship as a kid. I got this idea of interviewing my dad. I remember watching something on YouTube, in fact. It was a person's mother who was in her 70s, got let go from her job, and she had a bucket list that she wanted to do, and she just didn't know if she was going to do it or not. And so what the son did is the son said, okay, I'm going to do the bucket list. I'm going to film the bucket list with you. And that's what they did. They went all these different places, do different things, and you could just see the sheer joy that the mother had doing the stuff and also sharing it with the son as well. It was very important to look at that and say, you know what, I thought of that and said, I want to do that. And it's always a good idea to sit down and talk with the previous generation. Hey, if you can go back 2 generations, even better. But they have so much knowledge. It's just it's amazing, and you learn so much just by talking to them one-on-one. I know I've learned a couple of things with my dad when we were going over some of the stuff. One thing that was amazing when he talked about the stress, and that how he just instantaneously said, okay, I can't be worrying about things anymore. And he trained his mind to do it. And it was just amazing to hear that. It's just, that was his why. His why was, I am not going to get sick over this. And he had the determination to not get sick over it. And some other things that I learned, especially when it comes to his Uncle Bert too, hearing some of those stories. It was very, very interesting to hear. You should do that as well. Here's an exercise I have for you. Why don't you do that? Pick someone in a previous generation, whether it's a parent, an uncle, a grandfather, a great aunt, whatever. Pick someone in a previous generation and sit down and just talk one-to-one. And you know what? Bring your phone and interview. It doesn't have to be on camera. It could be an audio. But you know what? Interview. And just sit the camera down and just start talking. It'd be amazing some of the stuff that you come up with. And guess what? Then after that, it's a great situation you walk away with enriched. But to have it on tape as well, that's for yourself and future generations. That now they might have a link that they didn't have before. And what a legacy to leave behind. So I got an example for you. So why don't you try that and let me know. Comment below. Have you done that? And I'd love to hear some of these things. This is all the time we have for this show. Okay, but trust me, there's more to come. There's a second part, and you got to check that out as well. But in the meantime, if you like what you saw, please subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions or any comments, please list them below. I'd love to hear from you. Also, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, because I'd love for you to get notifications of when the next video is. So check out everything, and I'll talk to you soon.